In the first few days of January this year, 2015, about 2,000 innocent civilians and counting were killed in Baga town and its proximities in the northeastern part of Nigeria. This event is clearly the single most deadly act of terror anywhere in the world this current decade, and one of the most dastardly atrocities and tragedies in human history. The reality is, you might not have heard about the Baga Holocaust because it's either getting no media coverage or it's being highly underreported for some troubling reasons. Now, this Baga genocide happened to coincide with the unfortunate events in France last week, where about 12 media workers and a total of about 17 people were gunned down by terrorists. And that event garnered the entire global solidarity and support, with world leaders even attending and organizing the Million Man Unity Rally, which was just concluded. So what we are trying to address here is, and what I'm trying to bring your attention to right now in this talk is, what and why is there a global media blackout on the events in Nigeria? What is the true nature and what are the true facts and issues behind this ongoing genocidal campaign which is affecting the northern part of Nigeria? I'm going to try as much as possible to lay down the facts in a simpler way for you to get a hold and a grip on this atrocity, this tragedy that we are witnessing in our time. By way of introduction, I'm Dr. Peregrino Brima of ENDS, Every Nigerian Do Something, ENDS.ng. So what is happening is a gradual and systematic annihilation of a local population. We are witnessing population cleansing of one of the most resource-rich parts of the world. At the center of a lot of global conflict, what you find is, though these conflicts are usually branded with other things, religious and other sentiments, the center is usually a struggle for resource. Like when you look at Palestine and Israel, at the center of that conflict is a fight for land. At the center of this conflict is a fight for resource. This is Baga, where this recent genocide just took place. It's in Nigeria. This is Western Africa. This is Niger to the north of Nigeria. To the northeast you have Chad, and to the east you have Cameroon. This area is called the Chad Basin, in which oil has been discovered, and Chad is already aggressively drilling and exporting oil from here. Nigeria has been unable to prospect for oil properly due to this convenient conflict. The same thing is happening between Chad and Central African Republic, where Chad is drilling oil from its border with CAR, but CAR is unable to get oil from its side of the border because of conflict, which is also happening, and instability, which is also happening around here. So there is a history of this in this particular region. Now, additionally, at the center of this conflict in this area is the Chad Lake. The Chad Lake, which is now vanishing, is a central source of water supply for these three countries. The farmers get water from there to irrigate their land. The cows, many of these people in this area rear cows, and their cows drink water from the Lake Chad. They are also fishermen. So all these activities, human activities and desert encroachment, are making the Lake Chad vanish. So in this article on Africa Renewal written by Ahmed Salkida, it describes how there has already existed conflict in this area as farmers and villagers feud over this dwindling water supply. And it says here that vultures feed on dead cows as drought and desertification takes its toll in this area. So the situation is an ecological catastrophe as the United Nations has labeled it. So with this competition for this water resource, we suddenly have Boko Haram coming at the center of it and being magically successful in exterminating and displacing entire populations, with over 2 million people having been displaced from this region of the northeast of Nigeria. In this article in the BBC, it describes how when the Boko Haram terrorists came January 3rd this year, they came with one singular intention, which was to kill everybody in sight. Now, speaking to people on the ground, they describe that when the terrorists crossed a day before from Gamdu, coming from Yobe, from Chad, and from Sambiza Forest, they came into Baga with one sole intention: to kill everybody in sight. They shot at anybody they saw and spared no one in Baga and 16 other villages around. And the people described to me that the terrorists even went after, in their vehicles, went after people who were fleeing, wounded or not, in the bushes where they were running, and killed them there. So they came simply to clean out Baga, which is what they did, effectively killing 2,000 people and counting, and sending the rest of the population, over 20,000, displacing them, running to the capital of Borno State. So this article says that the population of 10,000 of Baga is now virtually non-existent, as the whole town has been burnt down. The terrorists were also able, very, very mischievously, to get the entire vehicles of the Nigerian army. They were, according to reports that I have gotten from our organization, ENDS, they were able to get armored personnel carriers, tanks, and the best communication equipment in any base in the north right now. The communication equipment in the multinational forces base that the terrorists first overran is better than the communication equipment in Army Division 7, which the Nigerian government is using in the northeast to fight these terrorists. So they came with a mission to exterminate the entire population of Baga. A little bit of history for 2 seconds. This area of Nigeria has a rich archaeological history. This Dafuna canoe, the oldest boat to ever be discovered in Africa, 8,000 years old, was discovered in Fune village, which is in Borno State, or now Yobe State, which is where this conflict is taking place. Borno State is richly blessed with minerals, including limestone, kaolin, and uranium. Okay, iron ore, oil, and uranium, which seeps from the ground in this area. So with what is happening, Boko Haram is systematically taking over, capturing north, and destroying the north of Nigeria to be used and annexed by forces both local and international. We remember that in April of last year, 234 girls were abducted from Chibok, which is in Borno State, which is the same area. And this was the first time that the world heard about what's going on in that area. Otherwise, we have over 100,000 people have been killed till date in that area, directly and indirectly, from the acts of Boko Haram under the leadership of this guy, or this guy. This is a double. They keep replacing him every time he gets killed. But under these terrorists, thousands of people have been killed, but the world has turned the other way. They simply don't care. One, because probably it's Africans and black people, and two, because certain global interests are actually being able to gain access to this resource, or will eventually be able to gain access to this resource once Boko Haram finishes doing their job. So we had the Bring Back Our Girls campaign in April of this year, when we raised awareness on the situation. Now, these girls have since been moved to Chad. Chad is where you have an internationally known slave labor, child labor market. So they've been exported from Chad, and a lot of them are some of them are dead, unfortunately, and lots have been sold through Chad to international slave markets. Baga is not new to this attempts at annihilation. In 2013, as we can see in this report in Premium Times, Nigerian soldiers actually were accused of burning down this same village, this same town. Nigerian soldiers, supposedly fighting Boko Haram terrorists, used some kind of firepower that to kill over 185 people and burn down 2,000 houses in this same area that's been hit again. This happened in April of 2013. Okay, so Amnesty International and other international organizations condemned the Nigerian government and army strongly for this atrocity in which they basically wiped out this area. They made the first attempt to wipe out this very area. So this is an image, a satellite image, which showed the amount of destruction and the houses burned in the Baga Massacre of April 2013. So this is not new. Conflicts between the countries on land is also not new, with Cameroon taking Nigeria to court to get chunks of area which it claimed to be its land. And these countries, Nigeria's, it's important to mention that Nigeria's neighbors are French speaking. So Nigeria is the only Anglophone, English speaking nation among French neighbors. And many of these countries might not necessarily have Nigeria's best interests at heart. Now, there is a history of Chad, Nigeria's northeastern neighbor, trying to occupy Nigerian land. In the 80s, the then president of Chad, Hissène Habré, took over about 19 islands in the Chad area, the same area where this conflict is happening right now. And then Nigeria had to go militarily under the presidency of Shehu Shagari, and the then Army Division Commander Brigadier Buhari mobilized the 21st Armored Brigade, closed the border, cut off food and fuel supplies to Chad in military tactics, and this prompted reprimand, but Buhari defied orders from the government ahead and went ahead with these tactics. And he said his first, quoting, he said, "My first loyalty is to my troops. I cannot endanger their lives by sending them on a difficult battle to defend their fatherland and then turn around to feed the enemy and supply them with fuel for their tanks." Eventually, the 21st Armored Brigade prevailed and all captured Nigerian islands were regained, making Buhari an instant hero in the military. So there is precedence to this, where we have Nigeria's neighbors coming for Nigeria's land. Now, in this article, which we wrote and published on ENDS, it describes how there is the oil that has been discovered in Borno is also at the center of Nigeria's neighbors being interested in sponsoring terror to annihilate the local population and possibly annex parts of Nigeria.